Welcome to 2023. We are the semi-sages of the
Woo-hoo!
pages.
Woohoo!
Woohoo! And we survived 2022. And if you're listening to this, you did too. So
Congratulations.
right, we're going to drink to it tonight and enjoy the fact that we're still here. And we have some really exciting things to talk about. But first, my name is Morgan.
This is Molly.
And I'm Teresa. Have you noticed that now we have a pattern?
We do. We do have
a pattern.
3 years and we finally figured it out.
Yes, the order of the people who will be saying their names. High fives all around. Woohoo, guys!
MTM. And we are really, really excited about what we're doing. In fact, we have a whole bunch of new announcements coming and we're really spreading out on YouTube and we're enjoying our ever-growing audience. So thank you so much, everybody, for joining us and helping us build our community of supportive writers. And if you're looking for more feedback on your writing or your voice, or you want to get involved in the race to rejections, where it's 2023, so it's time to start over. And we get to race and see who gets the most rejections and who is the true winner in our attempt to get published, or our submissions to short story contests, or whatever it is that you're getting rejected.
It's more of a marathon. Let's be honest. It lasts the whole year. And yeah, so head over to our Discord if you want to join. You want to feel like you are supported by your fellow authors, and rejection is really hard, but with the race to rejection, we celebrate it, and that's the only way you can win. So if you're listening to this and you're like, man, I really wish they did more XYZ.
Insert your brilliant idea right here.
Insert
below.
Yeah. Let us know. We maybe have already made the decisions, but maybe we'll incorporate your feedback.
We made no decisions.
We will incorporate your feedback.
We will. We're constantly brainstorming. We're constantly trying to figure out how we can be valuable to all of you. So please let us know. We want to connect more with you guys as an audience. We want you guys to feel like you can reach out to us. So you'll hear it at the end. I'll say it here. If you have these ideas, put them in the comment. Send us an email, semisages@gmail.com, or connect with us on our Discord. Hopefully it's even a year of even better ifs.
It's going to be, definitely.
Absolutely.
I like that.
Unlike the publishing industry, maybe. Should we start with the publishing
You want to start
industry?
there? You want to start there?
I think so, yeah. Teresa, do you want to tell us about the article?
So every single day, the New York Times sends out kind of a well-written article about an interesting topic, and then you get the headlines as well. So I really recommend it. It's a nice, quick 2-minute read every single morning.
We'll put a link somewhere in the description or somewhere here so you can follow along if you want to.
Yeah. So this article was titled Publishing Under Pressure. And so it talked about a bunch of different things, but what we really want to hone in on is about book banning. Book banning continues to be a topic that concerns a lot of parents, both on both sides of the spectrum, and it also concerns the publishing industry as well. So book banning basically means that school districts are coming together and they are saying that we are removing certain books from the school libraries or from public libraries, or the city is coming together and saying we are removing this book from our public libraries for a variety of reasons. Go ahead, Molly, I can see you.
I just think your language about coming together is interesting, because sometimes it depends on the community you're in or the location you're in, who makes those decisions and who is coming together and who is not coming together to make those decisions. It's just interesting, right?
Yeah.
But absolutely, as we're talking about, like, books that get intentionally removed from public libraries and school libraries and school curriculums.
And the other thing that happens is that there does get to be pressure on the booksellers as well to remove or to stock banned books. So one way or the other, it does affect booksellers as well. Now we can keep going. Back to you, Morgan.
I wanted to look at the book I wanted to talk about. There was a very famous book I read called New Kid, And I was just trying, and it won a big award, and I'm trying to remember which award it won. So I was trying to look it up, but I can't find it if you guys can. It just got banned in Mississippi and Arkansas for racism. And the irony of this book is that it's about an African-American boy who got sent to an affluent Caucasian school, and he is of course mistreated because of his race, but that's not why it got banned. It didn't get banned because it was racist towards the African-American student. It got banned because it portrayed the affluent Caucasian children and teachers, particularly teachers, in a negative light. And they said that that was racist, which I thought was very interesting. So here's the implications of that. So it becomes a banned book there, and then it spreads and people don't read it and they don't know what actually happened in the book and they don't give the book a chance. And while that may have happened and I read it, those teachers arc out of that. So that's even like picked from the center. It doesn't end on that note at all. It actually ends on a really healing note. So they pick out parts before the arc is done and they decide it's not good. And then that book is labeled with this, in my opinion, inaccurate perception that the entire work is racist. And then another district hears it, another district hears it, another district hears it. So what happens is schools aren't buying that book. They're not teaching that book. Teachers who try to teach that book are discouraged from that. And so they're not buying class sets of this best-selling or of this award-winning book. They're not stocking their libraries with it. And they're going back and teaching books from authors from the 60s and 70s. I can't tell you how many teachers are still teaching The Outsiders. Like almost every 8th or 9th grade teacher I know tries to teach The Outsiders. You have literally grade teachers fighting to teach The Outsiders because it deals with gritty issues, but it's not banned. And so it's very interesting, even though it doesn't bridge like some of the more controversial issues of 2022 and now 2023. So they're going back and doing the ones that they already have. That means nobody's buying new copies. That means advances aren't getting paid back. That means debut authors aren't getting featured because they're featuring literally authors who have, in some cases, passed away already.
Or other thing too. So let's say a publisher has said, okay, we're going to buy this book. We're going to buy this book. We think it's going to be really valuable for schools. That's how we're going to market it. They spend years in development, 18 months to 3 years, developing that story, paying their editors, paying the artists, paying the formatters, paying the author. The author does their marketing. They're focused on it. Everything else, it debuts. And all of a sudden the schools go, nope. What do you think happens to that author? Do you think they get another book contract? No way.
One thing the article talks about, and if you're not in the know about this, you might not know that banned books in the past few years have disproportionately featured characters from marginalized backgrounds, specifically characters from ethnic minorities and characters who are LGBTQ+. That's just reality, that it's disproportionately affecting characters in those books that features those types of characters or from those types of point of views.
And authors also.
Yeah, most authors who write those tend to be from those
communities,
viewpoints. Yeah, viewpoints and communities. So the extra insidious part, right, is the reality is publishers are here to make money. They want to sell books that make money. And if they publish books and they spend all this time and money to publish a book, which gets banned, they are less likely, as Teresa said, to give that author another new contract, another new advance, more new book deals. They also become less likely to give similar authors book contracts, book deals, advances.
Right.
So it is this insidious loop of go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was going to say and I really loved insidious loop.
Insidious
loop.
Yeah.
Thank you. I can't say it, but it's beautiful. Where we just continue to publish the same thoughts, the same views. We're not expanding. We're not reading a book and being like, I never thought of that. Oh my gosh. We're not changing our worldview. And that is something that we need to do as human beings. we need to constantly be evolving. We need to constantly be saying like, hey, 2 years ago, I thought this. Now I don't think that. And one of the best ways to get new views, to grow and to change is to read and to read other people's viewpoints. That is why, I several years ago, I was chatting with a friend and she said, my daughter doesn't like the books that are in her summer reading because they're not about her. And I was like, that's the entire point. They're not supposed to be about her. It teaches children empathy. It teaches them understanding of not everybody is like me. And that's good.
And that's okay.
Well,
Yeah,
and then
that should
also
be celebrated.
But then also some of it's the opposite. Like New Kid is a good example of that. Then there are kids who never have their story told, and then finally it's their story that
Right.
gets to be told. So it's like a more of an equity of understanding, right? So it creates equity and access to powerful protagonists who are experiencing real world conditions.
Yeah. I think that the most powerful thing for a writer, or one of the most important skills a writer needs to have that isn't talked about, is empathy.
Mhm.
You need to be able, as a writer, right? As a writer, you need to be able to understand other people's viewpoints and to try to put yourself in other people's shoes and sympathize with other people and say, okay, this is quote unquote the villain of the story, but I understand why they're acting the way they are. And I could write a story from their standpoint. I understand how other people see the world, and I can understand why they're making the decisions they're making.
Mhm.
As an author, I think that's incredibly important. I think it's incredibly important as a human, though, as well,
Mhm.
right? That we know what our fellow humans are encountering in this world. I happen to be a white woman who lives in the US. That is who I am. But that doesn't mean I can't read about other people's experiences and empathize and, try to put myself in understanding of other people's situations so that I can act as a better human being on this planet.
And it doesn't mean that you have to agree with other people's actions. It doesn't mean that you have to 100% be like, okay, I understand why they did that. And in that situation, I would do the exact same thing. That's not that's not the point. The point is saying, oh, I understand that. I disagree with it, but I get it. Or I can see the points. I can see what you're saying. And so there's value in those thoughts. There's value in that debate, in
There's
being
value in
like,
critical thinking.
what? We don't teach that anymore.
Well, and I like the idea, like the Dalai Lama is always talking about compassion and how compassion is
Yes.
essential for healing. And I'm very concerned about book banning increasing the polarization in the US. And I'm
Yeah.
very, very concerned that now it means in the cities and in certain places, they'll have access to different kinds of stories, maybe more modern stories than in certain rural areas, where, as I think, Molly, you were alluding to when Teresa used the word come together, where specific parental groups are in some cases trying to
They control
weaponize.
the narrative.
They're trying to control the narrative for the entire. And so it reminds me of one of my favorite 1980s movies, which is a movie called Footloose. And I don't know if you remember Footloose, but it's about literally bringing dancing to a rural community to change
Because dancing was
narrative.
banned.
Because his dancing was banned. Yeah.
Mhm.
And
Well,
so we're
go
going
ahead, go
back
ahead.
to that. And
We
we're
are.
going back very quickly. And if you think about the lessons in Handmaid's Tale and why Handmaid's Tale is so popular right now, because we're watching these freedoms be eroded. And book banning is so critical to tyrannical governments. It's so key to whether, it doesn't matter what tyrannical government we're talking about. When you're talking about the takeover of a populace, you want to control that narrative and make it as simple and
You control the information.
mhm.
And you make it simple, because we are what we think.
Mhm.
And books give us the ability to think a little bit differently.
I
Take
think
that
it's a
back.
big deal, and I think we need to keep talking about it. And I'd love different perspectives
So-
in the chat, or anybody who sees it
Yeah.
differently.
Something that really gets me is I'm not sure what the answer is here, but sometimes I hear people say that the answer is like, oh, read banned books, which is not like the worst thing to say, but I want to talk about, or I want to reiterate something Morgan said, which is if the book is banned at your library,
how do you read it?
How do you read it? Or you don't have all the money in the world. You can't buy every single book. And especially if you're a
challenge accepted.
Well, right.
Especially if you are a teenager or something like that, and you want to read these books, but the book isn't at your school library and the book isn't at your public library, and you don't have the money to buy it because you're a teenager or something like that. Like, how do you get access to these books? It's not a clear cut answer in there.
And it can be as easy as not having access to Amazon, or having parents that check your packages or are like, hey, you got a package, open that up. Yeah, no, you're not reading that.
Which is why I think it's a perfect time to turn the page to talk about titles. So I'm making a bold claim that titles, if you can, the best titles reflect the voice of the novel and have a voiciness to them. And so with that, I'm going to present a little slideshow on voiciness, and Molly and Teresa are going to push back, and we're going to see if we can find some semi-sage, some wisdom, some half wisdom.
So for reference, if you listen to our episode on judging book covers, we started with titles and talking about titles and why we like titles, what they do for us, what they teach us about books. And so that was kind of an inspiration and jumping off point for this kind of discussion on, okay, well, how do you actually what makes a title good and how do we do more? So thank you, Morgan, for doing some research and sharing with us.
So this is just based on some articles that I read and some different YouTube channels, and I just kind of amalgamated them together. And here's some ideas that pretty much everybody was talking about. So I decided not to give one person credit because they were all saying the same thing. So they said, everyone judges a book by their cover. So let's talk about our covers. First, what do? They hook us. They make us want to know more. They set the mood. So when you look at the title or the cover, you can get the genre right away. And for reference, watch our holiday special and see if you do a good job with that. But more importantly, those covers make this promise to the reader. So one cover might make the promise of deep symbolism. Another might make a promise of a foray into sanity. And another might make the promise of a lighthearted romance. And we can see that just by the cover. I'm arguing that titles can set us apart and show that we have voice, and that strong titles often have a similar voice to their actual pages. Thoughts?
I mean, I don't disagree so far. I think there's also genre conventions in titles. I think that there's only so much you can do in just a few words. We learned from our show that 80% of titles are 4 words or less, with different conventions for different genres, right? So there's only so many combinations and stuff you can do, but I don't disagree inherently with what you're saying at all.
And I'm going to argue that the conventions for the genre are specific to voice. So horror, for example, you taught us, is the genre that most likely has the one-word titles, has short titles. And horror writing, most often because of suspense, has shorter sentences. And so you're seeing that the titles reflect the conventions of the genre. Mm-hmm. In the same way that the art sets the mood. That's my premise.
Yeah. I don't disagree with that at all.
Okay, so I have all kinds of feelings about writing titles. And I showed you this picture before.
We got this one. Mm-hmm. Big head, little body.
Cute. That's funny.
Not cute. Titles.
Frustrating.
Titles. So here are the don'ts I found on the internet and from my research. They said, don't use one-word titles. They harm your marketing. And their reasoning for this, especially to indie authors, they said, do not use one-word titles, because when you search it in the search engine, it's going to bring up definitions and it's going to bring up dictionaries, and it's not necessarily going to link to a book. And so they said for marketing, 3-word titles, especially for indie authors, makes marketing easier and gets your book out into the world so you can sell more copies. So I thought that was interesting. And that was talked about a lot with indie sites that I looked at. I just watched some YouTube videos and read a couple articles. They also talked about avoiding punctuation that bogs down the title, of course, except apostrophes, of course, except oh gosh, you guys, I'm forgetting subtitles.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Subtitles. And then the occasional girl, comma, why are you doing that or something, you know? So unless you're breaking it to like create voice. And if you're breaking the punctuation rule to create voice, then that, like a sassiness or a darkness, then that can actually be a power. Oh,
I'm going to push back actually on the subtitle comment that you made.
yeah.
So this is again an indie thing. You absolutely should be doing subtitles on your ebooks because you can change those.
Okay.
Super easy to do. You literally can change your titles of ebooks and make them a little bit more SEO friendly. So
Okay.
subtitles, go ahead.
So then you're saying you could have a one-word title and then you have a subtitle and that helps get your marketing. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay,
And a
that's really
subtitle can be
helpful.
something as simple as a paranormal mystery.
Nice,
All right.
because that's going to increase your ability to get
SEO.
searched. Yeah.
And we saw that when we did our holiday special, we had a title that was anatomy, subtitle, a love story.
Right.
Yeah. Was that traditional published or indie, Molly?
That's traditionally published.
That was traditional.
And so one thing, like when you talk about avoid the one word titles, I will say that for large, so I have the data. So for large publishing, traditionally published stuff, this might not be true. Or at very least, for the 320 most popular books, according to Goodreads for 2022, over 15%, I just looked at it, over 15% of all of those books had one word titles. So it was not uncommon for traditionally published books to have one word titles. However, what you're saying about the indie market makes complete and utter sense. That makes a ton of sense, especially if someone is indie. I totally get where you're coming from, and that probably is very true.
Okay. And the third thing they told us, again, this is a lot about marketing, is avoid titles that are exactly the same. There have been lawsuits and you could lose, and that's a really big deal. So make sure you, search your title, and ones that are really close to something that's super popular, because you're just going to get buried when people are looking for it.
So titles are not copyrighted. There have been lawsuits about it, but titles are not copyrighted. So you can technically, you could choose Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. You wouldn't do that because that's poor marketing, because people will sit there and be like, that's not the book that I wanted. Why would I buy this book?
And you wouldn't title, like if you title your book, How to Harm a Mockingbird, right? No, people might not remember that, and you're just going to be sending them to another book. That's
what
the
book
point.
would that be?
You don't want to send people to a book that's not your book.
Right, exactly.
I like how Mockingbird is our theme too. That's like interesting. Okay, do be Voicey, and I might not have spelled Voicey right, so you can tell me. And connected to the voice of the novel. Do use words that will optimize your search engine results, and do know the marketing trends and genre results. And if you want help with number 3, please check out our genres and titles episode, because it gets into details about what the market trends are for 2022.
Yeah. And I think we're going to do a deep dive into each of the genres and what I found. But to me, like 1 and 3 are very similar. Like being voicey and connecting it to the voice of your novel has to do a lot with, okay, what's the genre of your novel?
Setting the mood, right?
Yeah, setting the mood. I can definitely tell you, like, the humor titles that were on this list, voicey to the extreme, like, which totally makes sense. Like they had some of my favorite titles, like The Field Guide to Dumb Birds of the Whole Stupid World.
Can you hold it, because we're gonna get to some humor titles?
Oh yeah, go for it.
Okay, so let's start with this one. This is this was a website I found that had voted the best titles of all time.
How did they vote those?
That you could agree or disagree. So, Love in the Time of Cholera.
Okay, how is that voice?
Oh, now what if I say something really stupid here? I was gonna say, because it's historical. Isn't it historical?
How
It
is
is
that?
historic. It's historic, but more than that, it's
How is that?
also literary fic.
Yeah,
And
it sounds like literary fic historical is what it sounds
because
like to me.
it's poetic, right?
But to me, voice is deeper than that. That's voice isn't, and I really disagree with this, like be voicey, because voice is one of those super hard to define things. So when we tell people be voicey, to me, that's almost like, okay, how? Because I don't really understand what voice is. And so how do we say, okay, in this entire novel, my voice is this, and now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take that voice and I'm going to hone it into 1 to 4 words.
Look at the comparison of the three. So we have Love in the Time of Cholera, Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, and Everything I Never Told You. I hear those in different voices. So Love in the Time of Cholera, I hear very poetic and ethereal. I hear as this twisted dark time that you see like the silver edge of the cloud, right? So it'd be like a literary fiction that deals with the struggle of the human condition, dealing with love, but the ultimate pain of death and the ultimate joy of love and the tension between the two.
But how is that voice? Sorry, I'm just going to keep on pushing
No, I
you
mean,
on
I think
this
that's
one.
okay. I think to me, and maybe, I haven't heard people define voice well. So, to me, what voice is it's the ability to literally get a persona in your mind where you can hear the author, you can feel the characters, you are submerged in the world in a way that the mood and the tone and the characters line up to create an authentic experience where your expectation is met so much that you're submerged into the world. And so
Yes.
you maybe you're listening to Kill a Mockingbird and let's go back to that one. You're in the South and you hear the accents of that time and you smell the homemade cooking and you know what the pine trees are like. And then you switch and you read Leigh Bardugo and you're in this fantasy world and your characters are very, Kaz Brecker doesn't fit in that world because their voices are different. Literally the way the characters exist in the world, their voice, the way the author writes their sentences down to the sentence structure level creates a mood and tone and symbolism and feeling. That's
okay.
what
Molly's
But-
head's exploding.
Yeah, go explode, Molly.
But I get what Teresa is saying. Like, how do you know your title is voicey? You're
Right.
trying to do it in just a few sentences. How do
Mm.
you know that is voicey?
Not
Because
even sentences.
Sorry, sentences, a couple of words.
Right.
So I can see something in the first 2 titles, which to me are very voicey because they're specific. They're specific and they reference something that, okay, Love in the Time of Cholera. I get a specific like picture that comes out of that. Cholera is very specific. Contrasting love with disease, very specific, right? Do androids dream of electric sheep? That's also very specific, right? And you're contrasting again, androids and dreams and stuff like that. But then we get to this third one. That's Everything I Never Told You. And that is actually like hyper unspecific.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that it's not voicey, but I think it's difficult. Saying to be voicey in your title is one thing, and knowing that you're doing it and executing on it is a different daunting task.
So
Yes.
some insights maybe on the first one, look at how they're playing off the idea of time, both the time of cholera, which is a historic reference to a specific incident in history, and love in time, that love is timeless. So that gives it the literary voice because it shows the ability to use words in a more like dynamic way. And then when you move to the sci-fi title, you see it invokes questions, right? So, and these are the third person titles. So, you have an expectation, right, about the way the feeling of the prose will be. And then when you move to Everything I Never Told You, you've got a more emotional, evocative first person, closer POV. And you can feel that closer POV, and that's the voice.
This to me just goes back to the reflection of genre in your title.
Aha.
I think that's right. I think that's what a lot of what voice is. And
So
then
we're
good
saying that-
characters.
So we're saying that voice is genre.
Well, you can execute genre horribly and then you don't have voice. So I
Okay.
think voice, really the characters have to carry off the expectations of the genre. And I think you both pointed out something that's really, really important about the first titles, which look at how they use the details of the world.
Yes. Okay.
Cholera, electric sheep, because if it's generic, it's not Voicey.
All right. I'm stealing control real quickly.
Yes.
I'm going to show you guys
control.
something.
I love it.
Show me something.
Okay. Here we go. Yeah. I'm going to scoot that over there.
Oh, that first one is definitely a romance novel.
Ah, but they're all the same title. It's all Voicey. So if we're talking genre,
I think this might be a different, you're not unrelevant. It's not unrelevant, but we might be opening up a different new can of worms.
I know, I know, and I don't disagree at all. But we need to, we can't really get into too much depth here on this one. But my point is that saying,
For those of you not watching us and are just listening, Teresa has pulled up this title in 3 different fonts. That's what we're looking at. Sorry to interrupt you, Teresa.
No, that's fine. And we'll go ahead and we can pop it in the thing in our Discord and everything else. So I've written Love in the Time of Cholera in a kind of a more fanciful script. Then I did it in a block script with bold, and then I did kind of almost an Arial type. This is the exact same words, but my question is, are we getting a different feel and a different voice out of these words because all I've done is change the fonts?
I think when we talk about titles and cover art and stuff like that, it's all multiple things that impress upon us a first impression of the novel we're about to get to.
Yes.
And title is one aspect. The literal words of the title are one aspect of that.
Yes.
And then I would argue that the font and the choices in the font are more on the art side of it, which is also an important thing that goes into when you pick up a book, what is your impression of that book, right? We're breaking down this holistic picture into its subcomponents. And yeah, so right now I think we're talking about the subcomponent of the literal words in the title.
Yes, and the reason that I went here is because as Morgan was talking, to me, and what was the Android title? I'm sorry.
Do
Androids
Dream
of Electric Sheep. If you haven't read that short story, it's brilliant.
Yeah.
Androids Dream of Electric Sheep.
Yeah, it's amazing.
I'm not sure that title is Voicey. I think that the subject matter, Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, simply those words evoke a genre.
So you're arguing like third person isn't Voicey, maybe?
No.
I'm arguing for Teresa. I think we're getting caught up in the semantics of what does voice mean. I think that's where we're at.
Yes, we are.
And I think what's really important, and Morgan, correct me if I'm wrong, we're saying like your title should evoke something for your reader.
But it's got to be,
and
it's got to
be consistent
genre
with the novel.
Yes. One, it has to be consistent to your words on the page. So if you are writing third person literary fiction, and then you can't run with the third title here, which is let me pull it back up.
Everything I Never Told You.
Yeah.
Writing a third person book where you say everything I never told you.
Yeah,
that wouldn't make sense.
I agree.
No, it wouldn't.
I agree.
So no matter how good that title is, it's not going to work with third person literary fic. It's not. And so I think that what you're looking at is, what are you setting the reader up for with your actual style with the prose itself? And then secondly, how does that set, like, is that a reflection of your voice? And maybe I'm using voice more generically here, that we all have voices, and that voiciness is just, like I was saying, like getting the characters to come alive on the page, because they sound distinct and they come from a specific time and a specific place, right?
Yeah, I don't disagree with your definition of voice in a book, but I think
Yes,
in
I
the
don't
title
either.
that is hard for people to conceptualize. So I think saying for a title, does your title reflect the genre and contents of your novel?
So I wanted to use some examples. We'll just agree. So one of my favorite titles is a Vietnam book by Shane Griffin, and it's called The Things We Carry.
Love
And
that
it's
book.
about Vietnam, and it's about the soldiers, and literally it's like a metaphor. The whole book is a metaphor about what they actually carry, but then it's also, each thing is a symbol of the emotional baggage of war and family and life. And so you read this and you get the idea how deep the depth of symbolism in the title. And so this is a really good way to go if you have a lot of depth in your knowledge or in your novel and you want to, portray the multi-layeredness of existence. I thought this title was good.
So 100% agree. I'm going to poke just a little bit at this one, because if the title 100% conveyed that, they would not need the subtitle underneath.
I think it would be very interesting to know if it originally had it, because when I read it, I don't remember a subtitle.
That I would be
think
curious
that's
too.
new in branding.
Yeah, I absolutely. And that tells me that people were like, oh, I didn't realize that this was what this was.
I mean, how could you not? There's a picture of soldiers on it.
I think it's because the opening pages are dark.
That could be.
So I actually think the subtitle is to keep them reading.
Hope and redemption.
Yeah.
That could
because
be too.
It's so heavy, because the things they carry are so heavy. I think that the subtitle is to make a promise. It's okay, keep going.
That very well could be.
Because it's very heavy. That's the whole point of the carry thing. Okay, next one. Humor. Molly, take over.
What would you like me to say?
You were talking all about titles for humor.
Oh, I was talking about titles for humor. And the thing you notice here, and the thing that I noticed in the 2022 top titles for humor, is it is okay in these titles to go a little sideways or be a little long if you want to. Like, they should, from what I have noticed, it's okay to be a little goofy in your title. Right? Like you see it in this one here. Always ask a man, the key to femininity. That's funny.
Mhm.
Like it's funny. Or everything I want to do is illegal. This one, some of the 2022 ones was, I'd like to play alone, please. Excuse me while I disappear. The field guide to dumb birds of the whole stupid world.
Mhm.
So you do see like some tongue in the humor stuff, right? You do see some tongue and cheek, sometimes puns, sometimes like things that you have opinions in the title, right? And make right away, like, this is going to be a humor book. This is absolutely going to be a humor book. So that's something I noticed. You don't have to.
This is what I think is an example of voice, because they're funny. The titles are funny. So you're showing you can be funny.
And some of the titles that I noticed like weren't funny exactly, but like one of the short titles from this year in the humor category was just titled Idiots.
Oh, I think that's funny.
It can be. It can be funny.
I just see them calling everybody an idiot because they are the idiot.
Yeah. This or one like the 90s.
That reminds me of Tina Fey's Bossy Pants. I love that.
Right?
Yeah. That's I could see that being
go
Voicey.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Go crazy.
Yeah. So I liked that. Okay, this is the last one because I wanted to show a really different idea of
I remember the true story of the three little pigs.
Right. So the first one, this is unreliable narrative titles, which I think were kind of fun. So the first one says Creep, a love story, and then Creep is written in all these really intensely weird fonts. And so you get the idea that like who is actually the creep, right? And then one of my favorite little kids stories is The True Stories of the Three Little Pigs Told by the Wolf.
Yeah. Creep. So I'm going to push back here because so Creep, a love story.
Mhm.
Brilliant. But if we're just talking about titles, it's not about the cover art. And I agree that cover art's wonderful. That tells us a lot about the book. But I actually think Creep, a Love Story, I think that can be Voicey. And I haven't read that, but
Well, I think the other
Yeah.
thing to think
Yeah.
about here is that there is interpretation to titles and to cover art.
mhm,
And you can everyone interprets things in a different way.
mhm.
And that is okay. Like there is no one master interpretation and there is no one way of looking at things. You know, you can look at Creep, a Love Story, and you could be like, okay, this is a story with an unreliable narrator, or this is actually a horror story, or this is a story about how they wrote the song Creep.
Or a band named Creep,
Or a band name. Yeah, you
a
don't
couple last name Creep.
you don't know. And it might evoke certain things, but you don't necessarily know. And it's all about, you know, putting it together, putting the full picture together. What does the title plus the font plus the cover art plus the blurb on the back,
What does it tell us?
right? What does it all tell you in combination?
Mhm.
And this is just a place to start. And it is okay to have different interpretations and think certain things are great. And they're, you know, maybe you disagree with us, maybe you don't. And that's okay. No one
Yeah.
has the same opinion on all of these.
Well, and going back to the book banning, we shouldn't. That's why that's why it's important to have other views. This is art. We are doing arts. And I think sometimes we forget about that.
But you're right. I mean, it's true. It's artistic and it's subjective and it's beautiful.
And you follow your heart out there, wherever you are. And we have couple of upcoming culture clubs we wanted to let you guys know about. We're going to go back and also be doing first pages again. So please continue to submit your first pages. The first one on January 11th, we are going to do a short story from Sean McGuire's collection, Laughter at the Academy. So go ahead. We'll release on our Discord which short story we're going to talk about. But, you know, if you want to read along with us, you know, go ahead and do so. And then, like I said, that's fantasy-based short stories. So we'll look at fantasy submissions. And if you're interested, submit your first pages of your fantasy work, and we'll select some at random to critique on January 11th live. And then January 25th, we are going to talk about hidden pictures. We talked about it at our live stream over the holiday live stream. It is 2022 Goodreads horror book of 2022, most popular horror book of 2022. So we thought we would give it a go. And the cover was intriguing, the title was intriguing for us. So hopefully you guys can read along and come with your opinions on January 25th to Culture Club.
Yay!
I like it. It's going to be fun.
And if you don't want to miss any updates on what we're doing, what's going on, the new stuff we're going to be producing in 2023, don't forget to like and subscribe to this video, follow us on our Discord, send us comments, send us an email, whatever it is that you want to do to connect with us, because we're super excited for this upcoming year. And thank you all. Thank you all for being on this journey with us.
Yay! Thank you, Molly. Thanks, Teresa.